Hello, and welcome to the Things I Want My Daughters to Know podcast, the podcast redefining women's health, one unfiltered conversation at a time. I'm your host, Jacqueline Rose, and every week I'll sit down with leading women's health experts and real women to share their lived experiences, bust health myths, challenge outdated and uninformed narratives, and explore what's really possible for women. We'll talk about periods, fertility, menopause, hormones, aging, and everything in between. This podcast is for every woman who ever felt confused, dismissed, or left out of the conversation about her own health. It is a space to celebrate women, break the silence, and open up conversations between mothers, daughters, sisters, and friends. Please hit the follow or subscribe button so you don't miss an episode, and share this podcast with your daughters, family, and friends. Let's get on with the episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Things I Want My Daughters to Know podcast. I am really excited about our conversation today. This is going to really hit so much of what I talk about here at the podcast, these intergenerational conversations, the conversations between mothers and daughters, young women, really bringing us all together around really important feminine female conversations. And my guest today is going to really help us do that. Elena, welcome. Elena and I have been connected for quite a while. You were a guest on one of my menopause summits, and I'm so happy to have you back here at the podcast. I know we're going to have some really interesting conversations. We've got so much to talk about, so let's see how it goes. Introduce yourself, tell everyone who you are, what you do, and we'll dive straight in.
Thank you, Jacqueline. I'm so excited to be here. It's been a long time coming.
Yes.
I am Elena, and I have been a concert pianist, and I'm still working in music, and a yoga teacher specializing in women, including girls, young girls, rites of passage, and menopause, and also working with creativity and the menstrual cycle with performance. That's
Yeah.
sort of what I'm doing at the moment.
Okay.
And I have written, yeah, I'm the author of My Dear Period, a guidebook, which is all about puberty and a menarche for girls as young as 8. And I ended up doing all the drawings, which is a
Wow.
story. And I've
Wow.
just created this beautiful Moon Girl menstrual tracking bracelet, which is
Yeah.
just
Amazing.
come onto my shop. So
Yeah, we're
yeah.
going to talk all about that. So I think the first place to start is because you do a lot of work with young women. You do also with old women in menopausal women. But I want to start with the younger women. I know you work with young girls, with teens, with young women. So tell me a little bit about the work you're doing with them and the things that you're seeing. What are you seeing that are like the main either issues they're struggling with, the topics they're talking about, the topics they maybe don't want to talk about. What are you sort of seeing with these sort of the younger generation of women in your work with them?
Yes, well, at the moment, what I'm seeing a lot, working with yoga and health and well-being for with female artists at the conservatoire level, and dancers, most musicians mostly and dancers. I'm from like 18, 17 to 25, 26. And what I have been noticing in the last year, because I'm also working at a different university as well, it's that a lot of young women are being put on the pill.
Yes.
But they've been put on the pill as a sort of out of desperation, so they be cramping, they'll have a very erratic bleeding or breakthrough bleeding, they'll have flooding, and they will go and see a GP or a doctor, and the first thing that they will tell them is you have to go on the pill. Now they go on the pill from a place of almost the great lack of body literacy, so they don't
Yes.
really know things like, I've talked to girls like, don't you know when you're ovulating? I mean, the ones that are not on the pill. So for instance, the ones that are on the pill, they don't realize that they're not ovulating.
Anymore.
They don't realize that that bleed is not a real bleed.
Yeah.
So they're on the pill, but they haven't done any homework about what is it they're taking and what it's
Yeah.
doing to their body.
Yeah.
And then the ones that are not on the pill, for instance, don't have this basic information like, well, you could actually tell if you're ovulating if you actually track your cervical fluid. And they have absolutely no idea
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
that means or how to do it.
Yeah.
And so I see girls on patches, on rings, on the pill.
And
Uh,
they're not, and I just want to clarify, they're not taking it for contraceptive purposes per se, because you'd imagine girls in university, girls in the conservatory, young women in their early mid 20s, they obviously may need contraceptive protection, which is fine. But you're saying that's not necessarily why they're being prescribed it.
well, I think some of them are taking it because they want to have sex.
Yeah.
And then they also, I also ask them, well, if the pill is making your symptoms worse, which for most of the girls the report is, when I ask them, so have your cramps got better, or has the breakthrough bleed stopped, they say no, that actually is worse. And then I say, well, why are you still taking it?
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
are you still taking something that is not doing what it's supposed to be
Yeah.
doing? And then I also say, you're not wearing a condom, because the problem is not just getting pregnant, it's that you're going
Yes.
to get an SDT.
Yeah.
And they seem to be, again, here we are in 2025, and we are solely responsible for contraception.
Yeah.
Again, still.
Yeah.
So it's like, what can you not get this guy to wear a condom?
Yeah.
I mean, or simply just don't have penetrative sex when you're ovulating. But
Ovulating. Well, that's also the point, is that many women unfortunately don't realize that there is a window of time in their cycle where there is a potential risk of getting pregnant if you don't want to get pregnant. But there are plenty of days where you can have as much sex as you want and you're never going to get pregnant.
exactly. But that means that they need to be tracking, and they need to be informed about what is happening in the body, what happens with the hormones, what's happening every month. For them, I think, to have the confidence to feel that they can actually
Yeah.
trust their body, and have the knowledge of when they may need a condom and then when they may not need it, but
Yeah.
also to have the confidence to ask somebody, can you wear a condom?
Yeah. Yeah.
And not think that confidence means I'm the one responsible for not getting pregnant. I mean, I understand if you're sleeping around, which a lot of young women want to try things, but then more the reason to wear a condom,
Yeah. Yeah.
isn't it?
But
I
I
mean,
think though what you're saying, and because you are in the space where you are teaching this body awareness, menstrual cycle understanding, tracking, and all of these things, apart from you and other women like you doing this job, where are women? Where do we expect young girls and women to learn this information from? Do we expect them to learn it from their mothers? Do we expect them to learn it from biology lessons in school? Like where is the expectation that these girls actually are having these open, honest, informed conversations?
well, they're not. I mean, I'm now, I got to the point after a couple of years where my conservatoire, which, especially the dance side of it,
Yeah.
which you would think the women there would be much more body literate because they're using the body in a different way. They are now booked me to do a workshop on the menstrual cycle awareness and tracking and all that for everyone, which is, like, I think unheard of. I'm working in a university that is, we are pioneering this, actually talking to students about, it's so taboo. It's incredible, even
It's
amongst the dancers. So yes, I would love for the moms to be the first port of call,
yeah.
or the carer, or the grandma, the female in the family. But what happens is that when you work with groups of women our age,
Yeah.
and older, and even 10 years younger, you realize that the female figure in the family is probably traumatized about their own menarche,
Right.
because most women's experience of menarche, range from the obsolete, like nothing, pad, hand a pad,
Yeah.
to being traumatized by being made to feel guilty, being slapped, being told it's dirty, all this hush hush, um, and so that's why when a girl gets a menarche, a lot of the time they don't know what's happening. They think they're dying.
Yeah.
I mean, girls are really scared of blood, in
Yeah.
my view, anyway.
Yeah.
And so if a girl cannot go to the female in the family,
Yeah.
then where do they go? Then they go to the playground where they hear all kinds of
Yeah.
crazy.
And you still are seeing this today because you are working with this younger generation. You're still seeing this today that there is a lack of knowledge, a lack of understanding, a lack of sort of conversation around these topics.
I think so, because I think the mothers are carrying a lot of shame,
Mm,
a lot of shame around their own bodies as well,
mm,
and then how they should be looking, and what the women in their family have been carrying intergenerationally as well.
yeah,
But if a young woman of 22 is having sex and they don't understand their own cervical fluid,
yeah,
maybe they shouldn't be having sex. I'm sorry, but if you
yeah,
don't really know what your body is doing and what things are, why the things are happening,
yeah,
and if you don't understand your body, because nobody's told you. I mean, I had women saying to me, "Oh, my cycle is all over the place. I don't care. I have no idea when my period is coming. I mean, and who cares?" Like,
yeah,
this kind of lack of understanding that it does matter.
yeah.
It does
No,
actually.
I know. And I think also one of the things you said about it being taboo and girls not liking the sight of blood. Um, I can share it here because my daughter has spoken about it. In the first podcast I did with my daughters, one of my daughters has PCOS. So she does not have a monthly bleed.
Mm.
And her friends are like, oh my gosh, you're so lucky. You don't need to worry about all of that. And she's thinking, I would actually like to have it because then that would mean that I was healthy and normal, that my reproductive cycle, my body was functioning like it should normally do in inverted commas. And we are told and taught in a way that having a monthly bleed is annoying and it's a pain in the backside and you're going to feel really awful and you as you said, like you mentioned before we hit record that some of the women you're working with who have to go and perform on stage, have to do a concert, and they're on their bleed, they're on their menarche. Like, what do they do? Because they're not, their body really naturally would want to stay at home, be more introvert, be more, go to bed early. And now they have to perform on stage. So we're sort of like, there's a disconnect between what girls, young women are sort of expected to do and how they're not meant to show up with no consideration of where they are on their menstrual cycle.
It's
And then
like that.
girls who, as you said, who have irregular periods for whatever reason, it's like, oh my gosh, you're so lucky, without that realization that actually our bodies, our feminine bodies, are meant to do certain natural things. And when they don't do that, we've got to ask questions as to why rather than sort of be relieved.
Yeah, because it's this sort of like 24/7 productivity model. Like coming from the Industrial Revolution, that the women became then also an accessory to this 24/7, which is like basically you're ovulating the whole month, because that's the model of productivity in the cycle, isn't it? The summer, the going at 100% miles an hour, because you have that energy from the estrogen. And I think it's really sad. I think it's like there's this disregard that we have inherited about having a cycle, being cyclical beings. This lack of reverence for the body, and for how the body connects to nature, and how we can also use nature to mirror, and how you're supposed to be productive, like, creatively as well. I mean, I feel it myself. Sometimes you feel like, oh my God, I'm not being as productive as other people who seem to be forever creating and churning and doing work and all that. And instead of teaching people that that's a natural thing in all of nature, and that each phase of your cycle has gold, if we only learn to look for the gold in it, like
Yeah.
the different qualities of the different phases can inform your creative practice beautifully, and therefore can make your creative practice more effective and more productive in the
Yeah.
end,
Yeah.
from resting when you need to rest,
Yeah.
instead of pushing yourself 100% the
Yeah.
whole time.
Yeah.
um, I see girls being, on the pill, getting depressed, and then being prescribed antidepressants. And is this sort of like, almost like your body can be, your cycle is something to be discarded.
Yeah.
Your blood, your cervical fluid, all to be discarded, or to be replaced by some
Medication.
by medication. And this is the thing, you start medicating the girls when they're 12 because they got acne or because they got a cramp, and then from the pill they go into HRT without a break.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then we rely on the medical profession. And I'm not saying, of course we do need to go, if, and that's why I say in my book, if you're bleeding a lot, if you have too much pain, you need to go to the doctor. It's not normal to
Yeah.
be dying every month because you've got terrible cramps.
Yeah.
But then there's like an over reliance on that. Whatever they give you, it's, you take it,
Yeah.
without even
Without asking
question.
any questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we understand the problem. We understand the challenge. We understand that this is, there's a lot going on here, maybe even a cultural language and an awareness that is really missing. So how are you working with these young women? What are the strategies? What is the focus? What is the aim? What sort of modalities do you work with? How do we sort of move from the problem to then supporting these women?
Well, trying to instill in the young women the idea that your cycle is really important, because it's, even in the medical profession, is seen as a vital marker for your health. Even when you go in the USA, if you read all the pediatric journals, it's like, how's your period? If you go to see a Chinese doctor, how's your period? How's your cycle? If you go and see a Ayurveda, how is your cycle? It would be
Yeah.
like very soon the question. So, how to convey this idea that everything that comes from your body is right and good and sacred and wholesome. And then how to then convey this importance of tracking. But
Yes.
when they're in the pill, it's very difficult, because
Yeah.
they are, okay, still, I still think, track it anyway. Track where you are. Track, because even if you're having a withdrawal bleed, well, that's a bleed. I mean, you work with what you have,
Have.
don't you? But
Yeah.
so getting women to track their cycle, so that they have like a sort of mindful practice of following what's happening every month.
Yeah.
um, if also they can also track the moon with a cycle, especially the ones that perhaps are on the pill.
Yeah.
Obviously, perimenopausal women, they can use that as an anchor as well,
Yeah.
to look at nature and to realize that everything is changing all the time. And some things are put into a sort of hibernation for a while for a good reason, so that they can grow stronger. And some things are flowering, some things are ripe, and some things are not.
Yeah.
You can't just eat strawberries all year round in England, and that's how it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's not the right season. So, and then I work with yoga and breath work, and I work very much with yoga nidra, and I work with coherent breath. So I work to try to address the balance between stress and sex hormones. The other thing I wanted to say is that people are so absolutely stressed,
Yes.
and not just performance, but you can imagine layering another layer of stress as a performer that has to
Yeah,
go on stage
yeah,
whenever they date, they're not feeling like it, they still have to do it. So is this balance, isn't it, of the stress hormones and the sex hormones that now we're coming to and a better understanding of how, you know, if the stress hormones are really high, your sex hormones are going to be
yeah.
really low.
We really, you were talking about how women don't, understand their cycles. They don't understand the tracking of their cycles and what's going on. The other thing that medicine and that we just don't understand at all is the role that stress plays in all of this. And when you are talking about, young women who are performers, the stress levels are going to be through the roof. It makes so much sense that they've got trouble with their, with PMS or with acne or with breakthrough bleeding or, all different things related to their menstrual cycle because these are a professional group of people that are especially and particularly highly stressed. But stress is happening everywhere, and
Yeah.
we don't understand how profound it is in our overall health and well-being, in our balance and our hormonal balance and everything that's going on in our bodies.
Yeah, because it's affecting the hormonal balance. I mean, now we know absolutely what is happening there. It's just
Yes,
completely throwing it out of kilter. So whatever you could predict before, you can't predict anymore because your hormones are just,
yes,
not functioning properly. Your kidney as well. So
yes,
I work a lot with kidney energy, especially this time of year, which is kidney. To really soothe and to really nurture your kidney.
yeah.
I talk to them about diet, so when I see them, I mean, I've been seeing them, this group, through the autumn, so I've been talking to them about lungs and kidney
Yeah.
and, keeping really warm, especially, in the whole area of the second chakra and the kidney area, not eating cold foods, why you shouldn't eat cold foods, just like very basic kind of like
Yeah.
well-being kind of tips, and then we just do yoga to sort of regulate a bit more the nervous system so that they can be empowered. I'd like to give them agency so that they can then go home and have some tools
Yeah.
to use to bring themselves into more of a nervous system, to balance a nervous system a little bit more, or know what to do to get rid of stress first and then try to, balance the nervous system a little bit.
Yeah.
So, we work with all sort of yoga asanas just to do with the reproductive system that are like, the top of the pops that I think every woman should know. And then you can only hope that they may just put this into practice.
Yeah. So I
Um,
love that you're using yoga as a tool. As a yoga teacher myself, that's also one of the ways that we've connected. I really, really believe that yoga has the power to um, be so flexible in how you use it that it's amazing to really get to the root of what's going on, to really be a supportive practice for women.
yeah.
Tell me, because I know you also work in this area, tell me the role of lifestyle changes. You talked a little bit about that, but also traditional Chinese medicine. I know you also work with that, and the Ayurvedic tradition. So tell me a little bit about how you're bringing all of these different elements to supporting women, and to really also not only women on, young women in their fertility years, as we call it, but also women as they navigate into perimenopause and menopause.
Yeah, and the thing in the West, seen from an Ayurvedic point of view, we have this energy called apana, which is the
Yeah.
energy that expels, the energy like the descending energy. Yeah, it goes down,
Yes, the
and
pulling down
apana
energy.
usually is very weak because of our lifestyle, sedentary lifestyles weaken apana. And
Yeah.
if you look at the seat of apana is down here and the whole of the back as well. So for instance, to do with everything to do with menstruation is regulated by apana.
Yeah, because it's all, let me just explain to the audience what that means.
Yeah.
obviously with the bleed coming out and coming down, there is a downward energy. I think we often think about upwards. We want to stand tall, we want to be strong, we want to have, reaching outwards, looking outwards, towards sort of energy that is filling and energetic, feels very upwards. But this is cross-referenced also with this very downward pull energy that for women is very, very strong because of that bleed. Biologically, the blood flows downwards. You have to have this. And so when we just so that people understand, when we talk about this, if you have, for example, stilted bleed, like it stops and starts, or very heavy clotted bleeds, or, bleed that isn't a natural, nice, strong flow for the course of your 3, 4 days of your, menstrual bleed time, that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah. Or it can be too strong.
Yes,
And so
yes,
that's to do with your liver as well. So so apana is the energy that expels. So urination, defecation, giving birth is the energy that expels the fetus, the baby
right, right.
during birth. So if you're having, for instance, issues with not being able to, push the baby out, that would be apana as
Yeah.
well, being weakened. So things that are helping you to strengthen apana, which also actually had to do with, so in yoga, blood and bone are twins. So everything to do with the blood is to do with your bone as
Mm,
well. So the health of the bone, and the bone is made out of fire and air. So what fans the fire?
yeah.
Air, and air is movement. The vayu is the movement. So moving is really, really important because it keeps apana, keeps the fire anyi strong.
Yeah.
So working with this energy is strengthening apana, like all the stuff that people, in other cultures, like in India, squatting is part of everyday life. In the East, in China and Japan, also many activities are performed squatting. Yes, squatting is number one activity that strengthens apana, really good for giving birth, really good for menstruation. So that's one thing that is kind of missing in the West from all the
Mhm.
sitting. And if you imagine people who are performing are sitting even more than
Yeah.
most people to
Yeah.
practice for hours and hours. So it also in Chinese medicine, is to do with, again, it's to do with this thing of the health of the blood and the health of the different organs, like the health of your liver.
Yeah.
Stagnation in the liver would bring some issues of stagnation in your menstrual cycle.
Yeah.
And then the opposite problem, which is flooding as well, during perimenopause, which is
Yes.
common, and is because we are not taught that your blood is gold. So the most important thing in a woman is to look after her blood.
Right.
The most important thing for a young woman is to look after your blood. And that means to really notice what is happening during your bleed, how much blood you're losing, how little blood you're losing during your cycle. You could be, are you anemic because your periods are so heavy? So my daughter was anemic, and that's very
Mm.
common, much more common than we think.
Yeah.
In the sort of early teens, that girls are anemic because they may perhaps have a heavy period. It might, in the case of my daughter, doing a lot of exercise as well. So lifestyle, what people are eating, that will also affect your liver, your blood. So for instance, in Chinese medicine, of course, they would tell a woman to eat red meat and liver.
Yes.
If
I
you're
know,
losing a
which
lot of
you'd
blood.
never get any doctor telling a young woman to do that to help support her menstrual cycle.
No, but you know what was fascinating? I know somebody who was having a lot of, like, basically she was having a period every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, or very scanty, yeah, really erratic periods, lots of problems and they thought she had PCOS. They did a
Yeah.
scan, they did all kinds of really invasive without actually telling her beforehand. They
Yeah.
didn't tell them that we're going to do an invasive scan.
Yeah.
And And then one day I just said to this person, have you cut carbs? And she said, yes, I don't eat any carbs. I'm like, well, then you're not making estrogen. Then you're not ovulating.
Right.
So of course, and I just thought nobody asked her that very basic question
Yeah.
about, are you having enough carbs?
Yeah. Yeah.
For instance, so again, this kind of lack of, I don't know, like holistic approach to the whole of
Well,
your.
I also think this is about, and this is one of the problems that I'm seeing in the menopause conversation, is your reproductive system is an isolated system that is only about baby production, rather than understand that your reproductive system is part of your whole body and it is connected to lots of other things going on.
Everything.
And those reproductive hormones, the estrogen, the progesterone, the testosterone, are not just only reproductive hormones, they have lots of different jobs in the body. And this is definitely a narrative that is being, I think, very subconsciously shared in the menopause space, where menopause is about those reproductive hormones, and we don't need our reproductive system anymore because we're not having babies anymore. And when those hormones stop, then that's just the end of the story. Without understanding it's connected to everything, not even energetically, but just biologically. It's connected to everything. So to really talk about, and this is also a problem with the development of specialists in the medical healthcare profession, a gynecologist for your reproductive system, a gastroenterologist for your digestive system, a dermatologist for your skin, all these specializations, which are important because we need people who really know systems that work very well, but without really understanding that these are not individual systems or organs in our body that are sort of sealed off and wrapped in, in bubble wrap and not connected. Everything is connected to everything else. And I think that we've lost that understanding and sensitivity that what is going on the liver is going to impact how your bleed days look. Like, who would ever think about that? That
Yeah, I
what's
mean,
happening.
and that's why people who do rolfing, they know all about, the people who work with the fascia, the people who do anatomy trains, they know how everything is tracking onto something else. And that's what is so beautiful about Ayurveda and Chinese medicine, the five elements, that this understanding that the elements live in our body and are affecting our body, not just outside the outer elements, which are affecting our body.
Yeah.
Like the damp will affect our body, the cold affects our joints, but also how these elements are imbalance or balance in our body and during the cycle. And the
Yeah.
same with Ayurveda, the doshas, the elements, the balance of the elements in our body, which elements are more prevalent. So if you're a woman who's very vata, who has a lot of air, wind in the body, your menopause is going to be very, very different from a woman who has a lot of earth in her body, that is a kapha person. And like your pregnancy is going to be really different. In my pregnancy, I'm a vata person. I was dying. I couldn't cope with all this hormonal activity. More movement for me was a death. But if you're an earth person, you're going to have a very different experience of pregnancy. If you're a fiery person as well. So, those models, and how the Chinese model understand that the meridians that are crossing across, going across your breasts, going to the liver, and you can work on your breasts and you're working on your ovaries, how there's all these correspondences is just so beautiful and so holistic and so
Yeah.
organic.
Yeah.
And that's what you're saying. Yeah, and the people understanding that the food you eat will affect your organs.
Yeah, yeah. I also think that we assume our body is symmetrical. We think we have, if you cut your body in half, you're going to have exactly the same on the right side as you are on the left side. And yet, some of it is true. We have, two arms on each side, two legs on each side. We have two ovaries on each side. But actually, our internal organs, the sort of internal part of our torso, is not symmetrical at all. It is
No.
a holistic whole being that all is a system that all works together. The heart is on one side, the liver and kidneys on the other. There is, two lungs, but the digestive system that sort of weaves its way around. It is not a symmetrical thing. And that just goes back to sort of reinforcing this thing that when we think about our bodies, we really have to not isolate it into little systems and sections, but realize it's all connected, and what's going on in one part is going to impact what's happening on the other part. So yeah, this is
I
really all
know
important
this
stuff.
thing about lifestyle that the women get
Yes,
to
please talk about
menopause.
lifestyle.
This overproductiveness, it's like a sort of the plague, it's like a disease, and you everybody is trying so hard, to get the sort of 6 million followers on Instagram, killing over,
Yeah.
and throughout all the whole of the early 20s, to make it, to be successful, to earn money. Then you have to be a mother doing absolutely everything plus your job and everything in the house, for most women still the case. I just read a brilliant book called How Not to Kill Your Husband After Having Kids. Really recommend it. It sounds ridiculous, but it's backed by a lot of research.
Yeah.
The author, she went and talked to all the sort of American therapists and couple therapists, and it is terrifying because what it summarizes is that women are still doing all the work and all the work in the house. I promise you, like 99%. So you get to perimenopause, you are depleted, you are pissed off, you haven't used your premenstrual energy to deal with all these issues in your life that, like Gabor Mate says,
Yes.
if something comes up during your premenstruum, um, if something that you don't like, or you find that really triggers you, that is probably something you need to be addressing throughout the whole of your cycle, so, and that's the opportunity in the premenstruum. You have the opportunity to really, re-examine, re-evaluate everything, and really decide, this is not for me. I'm going to cut that out. I'm going to prune. I'm going to edit. But we're not taught that. So, you get to menopause with a backlog of injustices that you have been putting up with in
Yeah.
your relationships, just like your daughter will grow in a house where sibling inequality is rife between the
Yeah.
men and the girls. They will be watching the dad and the mom also be completely unequal in the sense of like responsibilities. Can you see then they both get to perimenopause and menarche pissed off equally, from this sense
Yes.
of justice. And then you get to menopause, and of course you want to kill everyone. It's just logical.
You don't think things have changed. You don't see changes happening. You don't see that as we're talking about things and as women become more sort of involved in society, business. We've got more women role models in all different areas of culture, arts, sport, entertainment, politics. You don't see that things are changing. You still think things are quite sort of traditional in their opinions, in perspectives.
I think it depends on how empowered the woman feels, and how, again, how depends on your outlook on feminism. But I just think that if we're still relying on the woman to look after contraception,
Yeah.
because she either won't know how to tell a boy, please can you use a condom, or by herself, or being brainwashed to feel that it's not going to feel as nice because it's a condom, because another conditioning, like
Yeah.
what is going to be nice for her or better for him, because it's actually better for him in the end, isn't it? I mean, he doesn't like the condom, is the guy mostly. I mean, nobody wants to have plastic in the vagina personally, but I feel, isn't that telling us something? If all these young, amazing, savvy, sassy, creative, beautiful young women
Yeah.
still think they need to take the pill because they are responsible for not getting pregnant, what is that telling us?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Fascinating.
mean, but yeah,
Fascinating.
of course it has changed, but how much, I don't know I mean, I don't know your setup, but how much fight does it take to make these changes in your household,
Yeah.
and how many women just give up or capitulate. You either give up, you separate because you realize, well,
Yeah.
I'm either having to put up with this, or I'm going to be every day having an argument about something.
Yeah.
So you have a choice: put up or quit.
Yeah. Yeah. There's got to be another way though. So tell
Yeah, I
me.
mean, it is, of course. Young women, I hope they're much more empowered, they're more independent.
Yeah.
But then when they go into a relationship, is that independence? That means, they're earning their own money, they have their own bank account,
Yeah.
they know what they want to do. How do you translate that into, like, who washing up, who's cleaning
Yes.
the floor? I mean,
Yes. 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 So that leads me on to the next question because I know you've talked about sort of this information exchange between the older women and the younger women, and having these conversations between sort of imparting this knowledge and this wisdom from the older women to the younger women, and the way that younger women perceive older women. And I think maybe there's a piece here also that's playing a role. So share with me sort of what you see, what you do. I know you also do women's circles and bringing different people together, but what are you seeing from this sort of which is sort of the essence of what I want to do here in the podcast is this intergenerational conversations that really sort of talk about women's health in all different areas across all different demographics and ages and things. So tell me a bit about what's going on with that.
so when I was doing my before COVID, when I was running all these for years, all these mother and daughter and girl circles, it was a really amazing thing to witness. I mean, the way I was running it also was using Teach Not Hand, so like non-violent communication as well into
Yeah.
this, to see this, like the French have a great word, rapprochement, this coming back together of the pre-pubertal girl with, and the mom can be a little bit strained, the relationship then, from basically the mom being absolutely knackered mostly, and then society also telling people that teenage girls are a pain in the neck. I'm sorry, I don't subscribe to this. I know my experience. I think some moms are a pain in the neck as well. If you want to talk about it, there's like a sort of like in the West or maybe in England, a whole thing that teenagers are crap and teenage girls are the
Yeah.
worst of all. And I mean,
Yes.
I think that's just like conditioning. So sitting in circle, isn't it? Is, I feel, what we're missing. So these circles where the moms and the daughters, they had some fun, they did some yoga, they were silly together. I sort of run it on purpose that people will be doing challenging things, quite embarrassing, some of them.
Yeah.
Then I use the strength cards, which are amazing tool, so that people, I basically was using Teach Not Hand, watering the flowers, so that you would give, people would hear really positive feedback
Yeah.
from the other person, and then you could choose a card that symbolized a quality that you wanted to grow in the other person, so you weren't sort of critical. You were saying, I wish there was more playfulness coming, or
Yeah.
or tidiness or something.
Right.
And then this summer, I went to do a workshop in a really beautiful gathering. It's called Medicine Women Gathering, and that was
Wow.
more kind of intergenerational. So there were a lot of younger women, a few older women, not many. It was mostly, I think, from 20, I say, to 40, the main
Mhm.
demographic, and children. Um, and that was really beautiful. And that was sort of really brought it back to me of the importance to have these gatherings where young women, even teens, are not forced, but they're in an environment where these things are happening
Yeah.
and there's nothing else going on, and you just end up coming to these
Yeah.
incredible ritualized sort of circles where there were lots of, it was a cacao ceremony, but there was also something to do with the inner daughter. It was just for women, the inner girl, and people were helping each other with their babies, and And yeah, because I, as I was telling you before, I just think that there feels like this is sort of like menopause is like a contagious disease.
Right.
The young women are like, I'm not getting that.
Yeah.
I'm not
Like
gonna
I
get
like an older woman has nothing to teach me, and I want to stay far away because I
And
don't want to.
if she comes too close, I might get the menopause. I might get it early.
Yes,
It's
yes,
like
yes, yes,
instead of thinking, well, I could tell you what I'm on the other side of this, and I can tell you what things might be helpful to you. But I think it's part of this thing that I came across a term called menstrual moaning the other day, which is very interesting. I hadn't come across it, and it's
okay,
something I came across from a paper in the States. And I thought, yeah, menstrual moaning and now menopausal moaning. I'm sorry, women,
yes,
it is
yes,
tough. But isn't that also part of the same narrative of like everybody, the curse, oh, my period has come, oh my God, what a pain in the neck. Everybody hears this pejorative talking about the menstrual cycle, and
yeah,
now we hear this pejorative talking about what it's like to be menopausal and
yeah,
why menopause is the worst thing ever, and how it's the end of your life, and you're never going to have sex, and you have to take all these pills because your body doesn't know what to do. And
yeah,
also women are lied to. Women, if you're listening, you don't stop making hormones. You
yes,
don't. You stop making estradiol.
yeah,
You're still making estrogen.
yeah,
Not if you go on a diet.
yeah.
That-
Yeah, and I just as you're talking about this, the menstrual cycle moaning and the menopause moaning and all the problems and the fear mongering and the negativity and the symptoms, and what do we have to treat that in, early years when you have a menstrual cycle? It's the pill. And what are we now being told that we need to treat it when you're in menopause? HRT. So there is a lot of parallels. And again, there is space and room for taking the pill and for taking HRT. We're not saying don't ever, ever touch it, don't ever go anywhere near it. But let's look at the patterns. Let's look at the language. Let's look at what women are being told versus maybe thinking about things in a different way. And I think the prime example is when you talk about all of the stuff you've said about around menstrual cycle, menarche, cervical mucus, understanding even when you ovulate. Women are uninformed about what is actually going on in their bodies during their menstrual cycle. And I would hazard a guess that many women are ill informed as to what is going on in their bodies during their perimenopause years.
Did you know what happens? I think what happens is, I mean, I remember now, I had a child late geriatric, as they call That's the
Yeah.
another thing. What they tell you when you're pregnant. The fear mongering then as well. It's like the Chinese medicine said that three golden opportunities are when you have your period, your postpartum, and your menopause. What happens when you're pregnant? There's fear mongering. I don't know in Israel, but here it's colossal.
Yeah.
And if you're an older geriatric mother, it's like the end of the world. You've
And
got
let's
to,
just say a geriatric mother is considered 35 plus. Is that the
yeah, I
cutoff?
think 40, probably 38 now. I think that they're sort of, and what was I going to say? I forgot what I was saying now.
You were
About
saying
this one, yeah, yeah,
pregnancy, about the narrative
yeah.
around pregnancy and geriatric pregnancies.
The fear mongering around menopause. So I didn't really realize I was in menopause because I was breastfeeding. So I
Yes,
probably was, perimenopause, which is very common when you
yes,
have a child after 35, that you'll be breastfeeding and you'll be literally perimenopausal, in a strange way. And then that's it. You probably have
yeah,
one bleed and you're in menopause.
yeah,
And the fear mongering around, like the lack of tools. So I now know that I was very I had a lot of anxiety. So when I went back to work, I now remember being on the train or on the tube, and also because I suppose I had a really difficult pregnancy that nobody addressed. I think I had probably hyperemesis, now that
yeah,
I think back, because I lost so much weight while I was
yeah.
pregnant. But because I wasn't throwing up, it wasn't diagnosed, and I just thought, and my Ayurvedic doctor said that's your your vata, that's your pregnancy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the only thing that helped was yoga, actually. And I was exhausted, and see, all that was like, the tail end of all that. I think I had quite a lot of anxiety because I remember I had a little mindfulness thing that I was doing, I would do on the tube when I came back, when I was going to work and back, when I started working. And I think a lot of women, if you're Vata, what happens is, a quick explanation is that the Vata energy, this wind, and the blood, the blood is, if you think the blood is fire, so when you're
Mhm.
bleeding, in your bleeding years, the blood goes, the fire has an outlet.
Yes.
Yeah, because blood is to do with fire
Yeah.
in the body. And so you're getting rid of excess fire, not fire, the excess fire that builds up goes down
Mm,
in
mm.
with the bleed. And what happens in perimenopause and menopause is that the wind energy in the body, the elements become displaced. So the
Right.
fire and the wind fans the fire, and the fire goes up. And if you think about all the symptoms,
Yeah.
like headaches, migraines, palpitations, they tend to be all upper body,
Yes.
and high anxiety,
Yeah.
insomnia, depression. All this is a
Upwards.
lot of wind, scattered energy. And so I think a lot of women panic with good reason, because we don't have this understanding of this beautiful
Mhm.
model of the
Yeah.
element being displaced.
Yeah.
And when the women hit perimenopause and menopause and get this anxiety, it's really scary.
Yeah.
And so you're going to reach for the ring, because you feel you're drowning, your
Yeah.
life is exploding,
Yeah.
you have no tools. So the important thing is that the tools have to be acquired earlier on, and the understanding that this might happen to you,
Yeah.
that this might be a symptom, that you suddenly are going to find it, that you're very anxious, especially if you're in a relationship where injustice is very high.
Mm.
You're going to be a much more pissed off menopausal woman than somebody who's in a very equitable
Yeah.
relationship.
Well, I think what's most important is that, from what you're saying, is that perimenopause doesn't just happen in a vacuum. Your experience of perimenopause and menopause is really profoundly based on what has gone on in all the years leading up to that time. So, what happened during your early menstrual cycle years? What happened when you were a young woman in your 20s? What was your relationship with your body, your reproductive capabilities, having children, not having children, at what point did you have children, pill use, fertility treatments, etc., etc., and then within the Chinese medicine language you're using, which is not very familiar to so many people, is the energy in your body and what is going on and how are you dealing with things and how are you approaching things. And it's so multi-layered that I think people just assume, oh, it's perimenopause and oh, my hormones are, fluctuating and declining. And so that's why I've got the symptoms. But
And
it,
they are, and this is why it's so interesting, like how perimenopause can show really differently in different women. You have to ask.
yes,
So for some women, it's very slow, which is the better,
yeah,
according to Chinese medicine. The easier perimenopause would be where your bleeds become, the distance between your bleeds become wider,
longer, slower, more obvious.
so that you're not bleeding, you're not losing all the blood
Yeah,
too quickly. Remember this thing about looking after your blood. The difficult one is when you're bleeding non-stop
yeah,
and you're getting rid of the blood really quickly, so you're having periods every 2 weeks, or periods that last for 2 weeks, you're
yeah,
bleeding for 10 days non-stop. So that, can you see, your body thinks it has to get rid of it really fast,
yeah,
whereas the other way, your body is saying, well, I'm just sort of like tapering off your cycle. So
yeah,
you have more energy. You see, you're going to have more
yeah,
energy when you are having that perimenopause than when you have a much more kind of like torrential, like,
yeah,
getting rid of something really quickly, like a sort of fire escape or a drain gone wrong. It's
yeah,
like everything is whooshing out of your
yeah,
body. You're going to be very different in your symptoms of the two. And that has to do with what's happened before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your liver, your pregnancy, your postpartum, your energy levels, your rest, your diet, your how were you received at menarche? Did people tell you that you were wonderful, that your body was magnificent?
Yeah.
Did people celebrate it? Did people say now you're working, your body is doing what was designed to do, now you're making strong bones, now your brain is growing,
Yeah.
or did they just go, oh no, poor you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
now you're going to know what it's like to be a woman.
Yeah.
Now you're going to get pregnant. No, now you're going to
Yes.
be,
Yes,
you
yes,
know.
yes, 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 yes. Oh, my dog is very excitable. Okay, as I knew we would, we have talked about lots of different topics. We've gone off in lots and lots of different directions. And my dog here is obviously very involved in the conversation, is enjoying it a lot because she wants to be here. Well, she's a female dog, so she's obviously enjoying all the talk about feminine energy. Um, as we come to the end of our conversation, because really you've shared so much with us, and we really have gone in so many different directions, talking about all different things. As I do with every guest on my podcast, I say that this podcast is about the things that I want my daughters to know. And I always want to end with the question of what do you want your daughters to know? And whether you have your own biological daughters or your figurative daughters, your nieces, your goddaughters, the women that you work with, what is the one thing that you really want them to know and to, to take away with from our podcast and from the things you do?
Well, that's why I wrote the book. I really wrote the book for my daughter and her friends. When I wrote my dear period, because and also, discovered that through writing the book, I healed my own inner child. I healed my own menarche.
Yes. Yes.
That's a very good question. I would like to tell every young woman and girl that you're right just as you are,
Yes.
and that your body is beautiful, and that you are powerful, that your cycle holds your power
Yeah.
and information that is going to enrich in your life, and if in any form of creativity that you embark upon.
Yeah.
The way this cycle holds information also helps you establish boundaries that are really crucial for
Yeah.
your relationships in life
Yeah. Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
Yeah. Elena, this has been so wonderful. Tell us, where can people find you? Where can people get your book? We didn't talk about your book at all. Where can people
So
reach
you
out
can
to
get my
you?
book from me, elenariu.co.uk, also from Amazon in Israel, I guess, as well if you're
Yes.
there. And it's for girls age 8 plus, and the female carer or the dads.
Yes, we have.
And then
Yes,
you can
dads are
you can
very,
get
very
this
underrated
bracelet.
here.
You can get this beautiful bracelet as well from my webpage, and also from
Gorgeous.
Spain, from
Gorgeous.
the woman who made it in Spain. And you can get to know all about my what I'm offering. I got a yoga class online every Monday morning, for instance,
Amazing.
at British time. And then you can, get to read all about this. My Instagram handle is elenariu.sanctuary.
Oh, wow. Gorgeous. And your
And
website?
it's
Or
elenariu.co.uk.
okay, perfect. Elena, thank you for sharing this. I think these are conversations that are going to be really important for mothers to listen to together with their daughters. And I think also young women. I think there's a gap here where we think, mothers
Yeah.
do talk to their young daughters about periods, but like the young women in their 20s, they're sort of like considered older, maybe living out the house in university, and we're not having the conversations with them. So
Yeah,
this
they
is
need to.
really,
And also for the moms that are listening, mind your menstrual moaning around your daughter when she hasn't had her period. It's very important that they don't hear a lot of moaning about your period. Even if your period is difficult, I just keep it to yourself,
yeah,
because it's just going to generate more fear for the
yeah,
young girl.
amazing. Thank you for sharing your
Thank you so
words of
much.
wisdom, your approach, your perspective. It's been really amazing to speak with you again today. Everyone, find Elena. As you can hear, she really has a different approach to all the things we're talking about these intergenerational conversations.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so much,
much.
everyone, for being with me and for joining me, Elena. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Things I Want My Daughters to Know podcast. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much,
so much. It was
everyone.
a joy being with you, Jacqueline,
A
catching up
real
with
honor.
you.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.